It was the coldest winter the town had seen in decades. Snow covered the small village like a heavy white blanket, silencing every sound. Trees bent under the weight of the ice, their branches groaning in the biting wind, and thin, crystal-like icicles hung from the rooftops like jagged teeth. At night, the entire town felt abandoned, as if something had slowly drained the life from it, leaving behind a hollow, frozen shell. Elif, a young girl living in one of the farthest houses outside the town, had always felt that winters were quiet. But this winter was different. The silence was heavier, more profound. The town was getting quieter with each passing day. People avoided talking after sunset. Their conversations reduced to fearful whispers and quick, anxious glances. Strange sounds echoed through the empty streets at night. Sounds no one wanted to discuss. Sounds that seemed to crawl from the very earth itself. But Elif felt it. She felt it in the way the air hung thick and cold, a heavy presence that watched from the edge of the woods. One stormy night, a blizzard began to rage, threatening to cut the town off completely. Her father had to leave, a hurried trip to visit the town's only teacher before the road became impassable. He pulled his collar tight against the wind and promised he would return by morning. But as the hours passed and the wind howled louder, Elif felt a growing dread. Something was watching the house. Standing by the window, she watched the snow fall in a thick, swirling curtain, obscuring the world outside. And then she heard it, a thin, distant scream, carried on the wind, so faint she almost thought she'd imagined it. Her dog, Sadak, who had been sleeping peacefully by the hearth, suddenly shot up, barking uncontrollably. His eyes were fixed on the dark, empty corners of the room, his fur bristling with a primal fear. The wind shifted, and the shadows in the house seemed to dance and writhe, taking on shapes that weren't there a moment before. Something felt deeply, terribly wrong. With a trembling hand, Elif turned off the lights, plunging the room into near darkness, lit only by the faint, cold glow of the snow outside. She listened. The old house creaked and groaned around her, the windows rattling in their frames as if shaken by an unseen hand. And then, through the blizzard, she saw it. A silhouette, a human shape, standing motionless in the swirling snow. But it was twisted, wrong. Its legs were too long, bent at an unnatural angle. Its arms hung low, almost touching the ground, and its head was tilted in a way that suggested a broken neck. It stood perfectly still for a long, terrifying moment, and then vanished into the white chaos of the storm. Sadak let out a low whimper and scrambled to hide beneath the small wooden table. Elif's heart pounded against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat in the suffocating silence. Trying to calm her racing thoughts, she moved quietly down the hallway, her bare feet cold against the wooden floorboards. As she passed the kitchen window, her blood ran cold. The figure was there again, but this time it was right outside, much, much closer. Its long, skeletal limbs were pressed against the glass, the fingers splayed wide, its head was tilted as if it were listening for the faintest sound from within the house. Elif blinked, a single terrified reflex, and it was gone. Her father still wasn't back. Her mother, exhausted from days of worry, was deep asleep in her room, oblivious to the nightmare unfolding just outside their walls. Something was awake out there in the storm, and it was moving, driven by a desperate need for answers. Elif remembered an old, dust-covered chest in the attic. She pulled it open and found her grandfather's diary tucked away beneath a pile of faded linens. The pages were filled with his spidery handwriting, detailing the town's forgotten history. As she read, a horrifying pattern emerged. Notes about strange disappearances that happened only in the harshest winters. Her grandfather wrote, "Every winter, when the snow falls deepest and the night is longest, the one who dies alone in the cold returns. It does not come back as a ghost. It does not come back as a person. It is something in between. An echo of life frozen in time. It comes back to drag another soul into the white silence with it." Elif's breath caught in her throat, forming a cloud of cold air in front of her face. The diary said the creature always appeared on the stormiest night of the year, tonight. It was drawn to the loneliness and the fear that permeated the town during the blizzard. It hunted for those who were isolated, those who felt the cold deep in their bones. Suddenly, a sharp, metallic creak cut through the howl of the wind. The front gate, someone or something had just opened it. A new wave of fear, colder and sharper than any before, washed over Elif. But it was mixed with a strange, grim determination. She couldn't just hide and wait. Against every instinct screaming at her to stay inside, she wrapped a thick shawl around her shoulders and stepped out into the freezing wind. The snow swirled violently around her, blinding and disorienting, as she forced her way toward the center of the town. The familiar path to the town square was now a treacherous, alien landscape, and then she saw it. The abandoned church, a dark, skeletal shape against the stormy sky. It had stood empty for years, its windows boarded up, its bell silent. But now its lights were flickering on, one by one, casting a sickly, pale glow across the snow-covered ground. The heavy wooden doors, which had been sealed shut for as long as she could remember, began to open with a long, painful groan, revealing an abyss of darkness within. Her body trembled uncontrollably, but she couldn't turn back. Something was pulling her forward. She took a step, then another, until she was standing at the threshold of the ancient, decaying building. The air inside was impossibly cold, colder even than the blizzard outside. It smelled of damp earth and forgotten memories. Elif stepped inside. In the deepest shadows of the church, at the far end of the nave, the creature waited. Its face was finally visible, illuminated by the flickering, dying lights. It was a frozen, hollow mask of a face she almost recognized, the face of someone who had once lived here, someone lost to a long-ago winter. It opened its mouth, and a sound like the scraping of ice on stone whispered her name. The ancient winter curse had chosen its next soul.